talking, connecting as mates, talking about stuff going on, and people will either like our vibe, the cut of our jib, or they don't. But I think the random banter bit that we're doing right now is just part of that. People learning who we are and whether they actually care about what we think about any of the things that we talk about. So
it's the virtual water cooler. We lost that conversation when COVID came along, and then when companies became global and had matrix management, again, we didn't have the water cooler conversation because quite often your boss was in Europe or in the US or in another part of Australia. And so when we get this sort of conversation going, I think it's so important.
But from a podcast point of view, like if you're listening to a podcast, you'll stay or go based on whether you connect with the people talking and whether you like their personalities or not. And if you sort of like, I don't mind listening to two blokes talking tech sometimes with Stephen Fennick and Trevor Long, because they've obviously been mates for decades and they get along well, and it's just fun banter, as well as you hear about the latest smart televisions or whatever they're talking about on any given week. Top Gear was never really about the cars. At the end of the day, you're watching it for those three buffheads.
That is so true.
Not to put us in the same caliber and category as the buffheads from the Grand Tour.
The title works.
Clarkson's Farm is never about farming.
Exactly. So that's why we do the random bantery stuff at the beginning. Something different. I'm going to do some dances today. I'm at my standing desk, so we're going to try something different.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah. You got a standing desk. Do you stand often, Matt?
I'm on and off all day. Like so this is now standing and this is now back on my stool.
Oh, you got a stool. Okay.
Yeah, I've got a
to keep it in high mode.
A curved bottom stool. So it's got like doesn't balance.
Oh, like the fidgety stools for the kids at schools. To keep moving.
That's me. I'm a kid at school.
What's really important about, and as we get into another one of our sidetracks, I remember when I was first selling and I was first reaching out to build relationships with people on the phone, and a guy came up to me and said, "Now, Richard," and he gave me because we didn't have mobile phones then, gave me a really long cord for my phone. He said, "Now, every time you talk to someone, I want you to be standing up and with your phone." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because you're an animated person, and when you're sitting down, when you're sitting down, you stifle your personality." And then I used to do a lot of radio with Max Walker and a few other characters. And actually, we went on those two comedians at Webbe and Matt's show. And Max turned off the mic for a second and said to me, "Now, don't stop smiling." He said, "You sound a lot better when you smile." He said, "You can hear it coming." So there's so much about what we do on our physical setup and our actual setup. So I'm a standing desk person. I got one because I had a sore back, and then I don't have a sore back anymore, but I still use it because I love it.
Yeah, nice.
Tony, it's true. Like being up on a mobile and your brain works differently. The office I used to work at, there was an account exec, and he'd have his little Bluetooth little headset on, and the sales team desks were on the other side of the building from pre-sales where I was, but this guy would just walk around doing laps and talk really loud on the phone, and we would all be like, "Oh, that guy! Oh, go back!"
Yeah. You've got to be careful who you're doing it to, like when you're enjoying your music.
Yeah, I mean, I love my AirPods for music, but the people that jump on the train and they just have their speakerphone or their little Bluetooth speaker cranking in a public area, I'm like, so inconsiderate, especially because it's always rubbish music, in my opinion.
Have you guys come across anyone doing like a voice transcription to their agents on the train or anything like that yet? You know how you have the people on the phone to their partner or whatever, and they're just being loud and annoying.
Yeah.
I've not come across. Well, I don't really frequent public transport right now, but I think that'll be funny when you start hearing people say like, "No, change this component to this thing, and I want to use this," like just yelling at their GPT on the train.
I hate taking phone calls on the train. Like I generally almost won't talk on the phone. Like Richard, you called me once or twice, and we've had to have a chat on the phone because I'm like, if I don't talk to him now, I'm never going to talk to him. But I hate it. I hate it for that reason, because you got to talk a little bit louder on the phone than if you were just next to someone, and it just feels intrusive and invasive. Yeah,
I think anyone who's worked in like team environments where you go to your team room on your breaks and, you know, you just want to go in there just to get away from everything, eat your lunch and just, I don't know, look at something on your phone. And then some dickhead walks in on their phone, just sitting in the team room, just like talking out loud. Can you not?
Well, I mean, this is why I think I've told this story. Like with my my old team, I had to instantiate quiet time. So from 1 o'clock to like 4 in the afternoon or whatever, I would get little ropes and cordon off, and I put little signs up that said "quiet time, don't disturb my team," so they could actually just focus on getting their work done. And if
That's
you wanted
cool.
to talk to them, like arrange to walk away from the desks to have a chat with them. So I wasn't stopping my team from interacting with other people, but I'm just saying if you want to have a chat with them, don't disturb everyone in the open plan office. Go take them to the kitchen, to the water cooler for a chat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Joe is with us this morning. Welcome, Joe. Good to see you in the comments saying hello.
Good
We will
morning.
get on AI things now. We'll play the normal trailer, the bumper, and then we'll get in because I have a special bumper that I want to show. You've seen it, Matt, but I don't think Richard has. So anyway, let's kick off the AI
You love
Operator
your bumpers.
weekly live show. Anyway, it's no secret that I'm a fan of Hermes Agent. I use Hermes Agent all the time as my primary go-to. A little bit of Codex app or ChatGPT app or whatever they call it now, but a lot of my stuff I'm doing via Hermes. And they put out a challenge on the weekend. They were giving me 48 hours of the new Flux 3 video algorithm via Black Forest Labs to produce a video for their competition. And I was like, you know what? It's free Flux. I'm just going to crank it. And so because Hermes, I have a whole profile set up for this podcast. And so like when I finish this podcast today, I download all the recordings and my AI has set up a whole pipeline of scripts that I run where it transcribes it, listens to what we say, and then gets the AI to sort of break out the storylines and build the comics that we do and then produce the comics. And so I've got all these AI things all via Hermes. So my AI operators Hermes knows a lot about our show, because it's read all the transcripts and it's built all this memory and knowledge. And so I said to it, hey, here's the X post announcing this competition. I'd like to make a new bumper for the show. And I expected it to come back and ask me a few questions. And it went and just did a first draft straight away. And I was like, okay, didn't quite nail the brief, but because there was no brief, but it had Roobot, our kangaroo mascot, doing a few random things. And I was like, that's not bad. Let's run in that direction. And so I gave it a bit of feedback back and forth, and we landed.
Here we go
with this guy, which is they're available if you follow AI Operators Pod on X. You can see this.
Whoa! Look, you got a mad comment from some really like interesting person.
Pretty crazy. That's free from Slager. Nice. Let's watch.
Gotta ban that guy.
All right, let's see. This was free credits. This cost me nothing to make, and I didn't have to explain a lot of what I wanted because the Hermes agent already had all the context about what we do.
But it did cost you tokens. Well, I'm impressed.
So no, like I could have iterated. I could have spent. I was like, this was on Saturday night. I was trying to do family time and other bits and pieces, so I didn't spend a million hours really tweaking it hard. But just going, I don't like that. Change that transition. Make sure you use our C nodes. Roobot. Like the first one was Roo just doing 5 random things. I was like, that doesn't connect to anything. I wanted to finish on the logo. Maybe get him setting the show up, and then send the signal out to the show, and that's like kind of that capsule thing that it did. But for pretty lightweight prompting, just even Roobot, I'm so impressed. Like I've got this 1-page sheet that I have of like describes what Roobot is, and it used that and generated all of that. That's just wild.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
This is your very cool. I agree.
Even just the idea of that being free, like it's nuts. Even like the Minimax team just put out H3, which is something you can run locally to do video, and it's actually like acceptable local, but just blows my mind.
Well, it's funny, we've spoken about this a couple of times. My children are very creative, and they're 11 and 14, and I think they're pretty smart, but I'm biased, and they hate AI. And the general consensus around the world from the youth is they hate AI because they see it's cheating the creative process and taking it away. And they're saying, and I've mentioned this a couple of times, we publish soon. Dave's being very good in helping me publish my book. And they looked at the front cover, which has a real picture of me on it, but I did get some help producing the font. Actually, most of it was done by Dave, but I had some help for it. And they're looking at me and go, Dad, we're not going to read your book because it's AI. And you got it all done for free. You're supposed to use a creative or a design person to do it or something like that. And it's an interesting scenario that in the old days, the youngest would run to the technology, but nowadays, a lot of children coming through school hate AI. They think it's going to ruin their lives.
It's the same with every industry, though, right? Like you look at like an old school blacksmith. He didn't go to Bunnings to buy his hammers. He forged them all, and all the weird little tools and all the strange little nails and hooks and all the bits and pieces. So, yeah.
And you know what? You're exactly. You know what infuriated me? I'll get a bit animated here. What's been infuriating me the last couple of months is how all the protesters have moved off foreign wars and our weather, and they're now trying to demonize AI data centers.
Yeah.
I mean, oh my God, what is wrong with these people? They're using it. There is nothing dangerous or bad about it. They're trying to come up with as many excuses as they can to say, oh, this is horrible and we shouldn't. I suppose it's just kind of like the kids worried about AI. I suppose it's just the community getting a bit scared and wanting to push back. But if I was to have, one of the ladies on the news this morning referred to it as heavy industry. I said, well, if you think that's heavy industry, let me place you next to some of the factories in Melbourne, which really do have heavy industry. And this person's bought a house next to a business park. They're complaining they're putting in a data center. It'll be quieter than a normal office. I don't get it. It is, I suppose it's just a natural reaction from humans to not like change and be fearful of what they don't understand.
Yeah, and just to want to whinge. Like humans just naturally pick on stuff and want to whinge, whether you want to hear it or not. That's kind of like where the concept of reality TV comes from. Like people want to watch other people whinge. Like it's such a strange thing. Like the whole point of the news is, oh, look what so-and-so did. Like, wow, like no one cares. Stop that. Just do what you want to do. Like build the world the way that you want to build it. I don't know.
We all got trapped in social media because social media feeds us stuff that we want to be enraged about. Right on the money on what you said. So imagine if we had a feedback loop of a program where the script was written by AI, depending on the response from the audience. Now, there's an idea.
So there was
that would create.
Although there was a theme on that I saw pop up and people complaining on LinkedIn around. Sam Altman made a comment, Mr. OpenAI, about, I found a great new use case for AI this week that you could hook it up to your calendar, with your kid's calendar, and then it can see if they've got a soccer game or an art class or whatever, and then it could record do a little mini podcast about their activity for them or something. And people are like, why don't you just talk to your kids? How about that?
Yes, exactly.
So I think it's fine in the middle. My kids aren't as anti it as you are, Richard, as yours are, Richard. They're a bit ambivalent around it. It's not, they'll use Copilot here and there because their school has Office stuff, their emails. They're allowed to use at school, but they're not really for or against it. They're just like, it's there. But it's funny because your cover, you mentioned your book cover, and I did the first draft of it, which was very simple. Then you had the preview copy the last week that you showed us with the just title, name, picture of you, and you were like, "Oh, I've designed a new one, Dave." And I was like, "Did you design a new one, or did you get AI to generate one?" And you're like, "I got AI to generate it," and I was like,
well, hang on. To be fair, the original ones were designed by me, and then I got that design and I dropped it in to AI, and I dropped in the new photo. I said, "Could you help me arrange this so it looks like a professional book cover?" And that's it. So it's not all AI.
What did you? Because this was what I said to you. I was like, because I can't just drop an AI design on the book cover. Like it needs to be high fidelity, like the rendering and the rasterization of the AI stuff. So I spent a couple hours on the weekend manually trying to reconstruct this marvelous AI generated image with tight fonts and a different dimensions
You did a wonderful
in
job,
Canva, because I needed the high fidelity. I needed, like, vectors and rasters and so on.
Yeah.
So, like, you can tell your kids, no, a real human put that together.
I did tell them it was you. I said, you've know Dave, you've seen him on the podcast. He helped me generate this and do this. The reason my kids are so against AI is one of them's an actor and a budding writer, and the other one's an artist and a budding writer.
Ben Affleck
And
just
so
sold
they
his
just-
AI production company to Netflix for a couple $100 million.
Wow. I bet you that cost him $5 to build. Now, that brings me to another point I want to raise with you guys. And I only raise this because you're the smartest guys in the room. I've been talking to a lot of people in the industry lately, and I've been getting across a lot of organizations, Databricks, Pure Storage, Anthropic, and I've got a lot of friends that work in those organizations, of course. And I spoke to a couple of venture capitalists last week, and it seems to me the unspoken common thought is that software is going to crash to recession levels, and internal building of your own software using AI, which is why AI was invented in the first place, to write software, and using people like Matt and yourself to come and help companies articulate it. I mean, if you look at a giant ERP system, a giant, word processing or communication system, some companies are paying them millions and millions of dollars a year. I just grab a Matt and a Dave, bring them into the company. This is how we work. This is our value proposition. This is what we do well. Can you just go and write software for us? Don't care about anyone else. Yeah, I know. And I know. That's why I'm bringing up. Use API, and is the protocol MCP, Matt?
For what?
It's a protocol.
The context libraries, the matching of context libraries.
Yeah, it depends. MCP is a USB plug. It just allows agents to speak to APIs in a cleaner and more controlled manner.
Syntax manner, yeah. So I understand that's what we do. That's what we're involved in, and I love to do it on the business process side. But it occurred to me that software companies, their value is going to go through the floor.
Not necessarily.
You don't think so?
The biggest, if you just think of that scenario you put out, why would a company even approach an independent developer that can rebuild something for them? Why would they do that in the first place? Means that there's something.
I wouldn't admit it.
Yeah, well, there's either a cost related issue or the product's not doing what they want. And if the product's not doing what they want, and the company won't pivot and add those things for them, there's a few bits and pieces going on there. And my firmest, strongest belief here is that most enterprise software companies either don't work in the industry, that they're actually building software for their customers, like the people that buy their tool, they don't use it. It's the same concept that we've spoken about before with some of these AI labs. Do they use their tool that they're shipping to people to actually run and use day to day? And that's the biggest difference. So like you just said, if you approach an independent that actually cares, that actually can come in and is equivalently capable, let's say, maybe less funded, but equivalently capable and cares about you and your business processes, and making sure that your team can actually get appropriately lubricated and do the work that they need to do. That's the difference.
There's additional differences between, when it's their business to continue trying to make the best product for their customers, and they're investing and they've got a team and funding and so on. It's why does anyone go and get seed capital? It's because if you are trying to grow a product to be maximally effective in a reasonable amount of time, you need more than one guy with a Claude code session. You need a team in order to build it. I know AI has changed the game, Matt, but still, at the end of the day, if you're trying to build a production thing and scale and have sales teams and support teams and all the other bits and pieces, you can't bootstrap that as quickly and effectively as a one-person team as if you get a couple $1 million in funding to actually hire a group of people to work collaboratively on it together. And that's a business building that thing and running that thing and focusing on product development, program management, product development, all the things that go on with that versus, one potentially single point of failure. And that comes back to all the disaster recovery stuff we talk about as well. So businesses do need to decide, are they in the business of being software companies and writing their own software, or are they going to take good enough, done well, done fast, done cheap, pick the two that fit them both best, and build or buy.
And but that's my point. And I think you've both nailed it. And it's what you guys are in the business, or we're all in the business of doing, of improving productivity, efficiency, margin, return to the investor. I just think some software companies, particularly the monolithic ones, have had it too good for too long. I mean, they've got maintenance support contracts that run into the tens of millions of dollars. And why? Because they own the source code. If I could grab, you and Matt and say, hey, this is my business. I don't want to make, Salesforce or HubSpot fit my business. I just want a CRM that works for my business. So you guys go vibe code me one. I understand we're going to have some mistakes and it's going to bounce around, but you guys aren't going to charge me tens of millions of dollars. And because of AI, you can do it for me at scale. Now, the big proviso on all of this is, where is the business process intellectual property sitting? The knowledge of time and motion studies of how to improve things. And all fairness to those monolithic software companies, they do have great specialists that understand, if I'm running a steel company or I'm running a services company, they know what you need, right? But there are other people out there like that. So I think the answer to the question is, prices from software companies are going to have to come down substantially, particularly for support. I spoke to someone, I'm trying not to use company names, but I spoke to someone in Canberra the other day, and their job is to re-sign the maintenance and support for a couple of large monolithic software companies that are involved in the hypervisor game and stuff. And the costs are like, what was 500,000, but it was 3 million this year. Yet there's no benefit to the customer. 3 million. I just run and knock on YouTube front door and say, right, emulate that, copy that, vibe code me, an app and an API that automatically adjusts itself between that software and that, and I want a screen that presents like that. And I know that you guys, I know with APIs and MCP, I know with AI, you can do that. Very reliable. There'll be mistakes, but will it be $10 million worth of mistakes? I don't think so. I think it'll be able to, I could hire you guys for a lot less than 3 million a year. Could I? Maybe I can't.
Yeah, if everything keeps scaling the way that it is right now, that might be my cost pretty soon.
Well, tokenomics, as Dave always refers to, can catch everyone out. I just think we're on the precipice in the IT industry of a massive shift. We were in hardware for many years. Oh, someone said on the SaaS to AS agents as a service, I'm seeing a massive rise in interconnected debt. Yes, exactly. It's a technical debt now being created at scale at the speed. Exactly. So all my friends who are in the hardware, networking, acceleration sort of stuff, and cybersecurity, I might add, they can't get enough equipment. But all the people in the software game that are trying to sign really expensive, large maintenance contracts, they're all getting.
But I think what Doug's saying is by rushing to take software as a service and create agents and get agents to do everything instead, that you've got all these dependency chains that are being created, and it's creating technical debt very quickly. So you're all of a sudden making big mistakes very quickly, and you're stacking on top of those because you moved so fast. You didn't have the foundation right. And so that means, yes, you moved fast. Yes, you got a solution, but now it's got underlying technical debt and problems in the base infrastructure that do need to be addressed probably sooner than later. But now you're basically going to have to go back and rebuild and re-architect a whole bunch of stuff again because you moved so fast. And so I think there's all good things that people need to think about. And it's one of these things people go, yeah, I'll just vibe code a solution, but it is more complicated than that. There are so many interconnected factors here as far as, and that's why we always say, hang on, why are you chasing that shiny object? What is the return you're going to get for doing that thing? Is that the right thing now? Let's structure this. Let's build a plan. Let's think about the order of execution and go, where are you actually going to see returns from implementing some kind of agentic changes or using an agent to build a new tool, or swapping from this tool to that tool? There's
a happy medium. You and Doug are exactly right. It's all about return on investment, total cost of ownership. Can you support it? Can you sustain it? And don't move too quickly.
Richard, you referred someone. I'll save names, but someone reached out and had a chat with me the other day, and they're in program and project management. And they were asking sort of around AI and how AI fits across that sort of industry. And I think, like most people, they were under the mistaken impression that to provide value in this AI world, they need to be an expert at using AI project tools. And I said, hang on, no. Your value is a project and program manager
Missing the point.
where you can slow things down, and you can actually make sure you've gathered requirements and understood the goal of the project, and make sure that you're executing things, and you've assessed and understood all the workflows and things, and make sure that you do that in a structured, managed way to actually drive an outcome, that you've measured your baselines and you know what success looks like, and you work the project towards that. That is your value, not that you know how to use some AI tool, but that you can make sure when anyone's chasing any of these AI genies that they're actually doing it in a structured, meaningful, purposeful way that's going to deliver value, not just be, like we talk about, just theatrics.
Exactly. I always think of the stand-up comedian who's quite known in Melbourne and Sydney, I think, Elliot Epstein, who's now a business consultant. And he's hilariously funny. So if you ever want to hire, Elliot's a friend, if you ever want to hire him, he comes in, sits your sales team or your group team or your project team down, and he just starts talking and he throws jokes in. So it's very entertaining and very good. And his saying is, you've got to know your business better than your customer. So if you're in the IT department, right, and you're going to make these changes, or you're going to start vibe coding or moving things around to save money, you must know the business better than the technology before you start applying it. And as you said, Dave, you don't need to be a specialist on AI to be a project manager that leverages the use of AI.
Exactly.
Yes.
There's fundamentals with all of this stuff. You don't have to become an expert in anything anymore. Like, you just got to be an expert in you and chase your interests and values. Like, I find it incredible. Like, we talked about the younger generation before. I did a bit of a internship with one of my younger brothers. Brought them in, tried to give them a bit of an insight into what I do, just the base fundamentals of what's going on. And he is he's quite a technical person. He was at uni doing cybersecurity. He's deferred and he's doing other things in the meantime, but and I was showing him what I do. And I found it absolutely fascinating that he was leaning towards that opinion as well. It's like, oh, I don't know enough of this yet. I need to go and do a course. I need to go and read some guides. I need to find forums.
Security.
It's so funny. Like, he's reverting to this old, dogmatic institutional knowledge method of like how you learn things. I'm like, dude, you literally have the source of every piece of information you need to do this right here, plus my, appendix and resources for you as well. And yeah, it was incredible. And it was like,
it's like your hammer story. It's like your hammer story. To be a carpenter, you don't need to know how to build a hammer.
Yeah, exactly. And like, just to give Doug some credit as well, again, on his comments there, it's so true. And it's exactly what I try and speak about a lot is, that whole idea of technical debt is because you've moved too fast and you did not have a solid grasp of the principled foundational fundamentals. The whole idea of actually building things properly. You only get technical debt if you don't understand the system.
Again, I go back to the state government of Victoria, who formed an IT opinion group, believe it or not. And everyone was running around and go, I've got a DEC 360, or I've got an IBM 380, or I've got everyone was showing off what hardware they'd bought. And they actually had to come out with a white paper that says, look at your business, find the software that will do what your business needs, then buy the hardware. And I remember back then looking at it thinking, that's so insane, having to tell people, don't put the cart before the horse. And it is. You can put the cart before the horse.
You mentioned Clarkson in his farm earlier. Like, he went and bought the massive Lamborghini tractor that didn't fit in his shed, that was too big for what he needed for half the stuff. And because he went and bought the hardware without understanding the job that it had to do.
It is. So what's your problem? What's the problem you're trying to solve? Map that out for your business, map where the benefits are, and work backwards from there. And as you guys say, some along the way, there'll be some guys like you or a bit of tools in AI that will help you build the bits that need to connect.
But people are getting confused, and they don't understand, like, what is an agent? When do I need an agent? What is the model? Which is the best one? which one's going to do the job the most, like all these different questions. And Matt, you like this one. I think this is a pithy truism or aphorism or whatever that little sentence fragment's called. But they were asking me about agents, and I said, and as we talk about on the show all the time, right? Like this is just stuff we talk about, like models versus harnesses versus so on. And I said, every agent is a harness, but not every harness is an agent.
Mm.
Oh, that's some wisdom in those words there, Dave.
Yeah, because like, you know, chatgpt.com is a harness, the web UI that you use, but you wouldn't necessarily call that an agentic interface. It's getting there with, you know, all the connectors and plugins and so on. It's much more than it was 2 years ago. But yeah, you can certainly have harnesses that are not necessarily agentic. But if you're running an agent, that is essentially a harness that's controlling the model.
You know, that's something I did the other day that I really found. You know, I know we like to talk business productivity, and we also like to talk personal productivity. But I was going to have a meeting with someone, and I wasn't sure how the meeting was going to go. So I got onto Claude, don't mind giving them a plug, and I said, okay, and I used the voice activation parts as my interface. And I said to it, I'm about to have a meeting with this person. Their angle and where they're coming from and issues are these. Mine are these. I need this outcome. Can we please practice how the conversation might go? And we did it. While I'm driving all the way to the meeting, and it was astoundingly good.
That's great.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah,
I actually have a similar win. My father, who is in his mid-70s, I've recently exposed him to GPT, and I got him to download it on his phone. And
very quickly, what's GPT? Just for everyone,
it is the colloquial term for ChatGPT.
Oh, good.
And
thank you. I look like such an idiot. Go on.
And anyway, my dad struggles to articulate things, and I was putting him on the spot and making him kind of embarrassed to speak to this thing, you know, this computer on his phone. And I was like, just talk about something that you want to work on. Like, what's that solar project that you've got going on? And we activated the voice mode, and I was like, just tell it what you're thinking of doing. And then the new live voice mode in that ChatGPT app is very, very good. And it put him so much at ease, and he was able to just think through his project that he's got going on. And he made massive mental strides to start moving this thing forward. Whereas previously, you know, that big shield, that big fear aspect of, you know, what do I do? I don't know. Where do I go? Do I have to speak to someone else? Like, how do I do this? I think that level of just unlock is very, very, really powerful. And yeah, the live voice stuff for rehearsing and just speaking your mind is really cool too.
It is very cool. And they were talking, actually, funny enough, the technology specialist on, I think, the Today Show this morning. When you write something, you use a different part of your brain to when you speak about something. The writing is about planning. The speaking is about, I need to understand this right now. It uses different parts of your brain.
Today Show must watch our podcast, because we talked about that last week.
Yeah, we did.
we did. I'm pretty sure they did. I'm pretty sure.
That's Trevor, I think. Anyway, Matt, were you going to say something about the agents and harnesses stuff?
I was going to briefly touch on it. I don't want to go too super technical, but you know, if you think of when the old version of ChatGPT, let's just say like the old version where you are just, it's a chat bot, right?
Yeah.
You know, you send a message and you get a response. There's nothing else that happens in between other than the LLM inference. You know, the difference between that and then an agent is there's, you know, a question. The question to the LLM is, are we done yet? And then it can say yes or no, and it just keeps looping until it says yes. So that's an agent. And you know, what does it do in those loops? it's calling tools, and you know, those tools could be MCPs, it could be whatever. So you know, the agent is just a loop. The harness is when you add control to the agent. It's when you add guardrails. It's when you add specific cases and instructions and hooks and all these other little bits and pieces that can happen in that agentic loop. That's probably the best way.
That's a great definition. And that relates to what we were talking off air when Dave told us to stop, because we're talking about all the good stuff. And that is, if we with all the breakouts of AI agents breaking out and doing illegal things and stealing code and breaching all these things, we were talking prior to the program, it's like they're like 2-year-olds, or it's like water. You need to self-contain what it's doing. And I think we use the example as if you ask someone to go and build your garden because you want all greenery and more light, but it has no guardrails because it has no moral compass. It's more about telling it what it shouldn't do than what it should do, that you've got to be careful of. For instance, if I let a gardener go loose in my garden here and said, look, I want more light, I want green there, I want green there, it could very well knock down the house next door to let in more light for me. It could very well steal all the plants from all my neighbours, right? And that's what happens if we don't, as you said, with the harness, have the right guardrails and the right guards that match our moral imperatives and our laws. We could end up in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, very interesting. I really liked your analogy about the water too. Like if you have a funny shaped pond or a bucket that's a really weird shape, that water will flow based on gravity wherever it goes. But
yeah,
it's just a good analogy. I like it.
Yeah. Thank you. I
mean, we're seeing as this sort of story continues, and we've been talking about this for months now, that the harnesses are where the wars are going to happen. Like that's the moat. The models are all catching up. The models are all quite good. And they'll get the answer. They might take a few more turns. They might reason, loop a few extra times, right? But whether it's Kimi or now Quen or GLM or Opus or Fable or Terra or Sol, like they're all getting to a point where with enough coaxing, you'll get good outputs. You'll be able to create code. You'll be able to generate images. You can do all the different things, right? Generally speaking, that you need. But it's how do you manage and control that? How do you manage and control that across multiple teams and that sort of scaling issue and so on? And then the harnesses, whether that's Claude Code or Claude Managed Agents or ChatGPT and what they're doing with their shared sites and other bits and pieces, or Hermes. And I tried building my own one, Sergeant, which we've talked about, which died. And that's interesting because I was trying to build it as a one-off guy who didn't really understand the depth of what I was doing when I started. I just saw OpenClaw and went, oh, I can do one of those. No, I couldn't. And then like Hermes has this whole research team, new research behind it. And I saw today a guy I know on LinkedIn sharing this thing called Kiro Crew, which came off the back of a group at Amazon. So at AWS,
team, yeah.
They have spun out this thing called Kiro Crew, which again is another one of these tools for having whole teams of people running multiple sessions across remote agents, persistent working, shared context across different team members and stuff. And I think we're going to see more of these sorts of things too. That, like, how do you get not just a standalone coder, software engineer, vibe coding on their own stuff, but how do you actually start managing that across fleets of agents, fleets of people, all working together across common goals to build something bigger? That's the kind of thing that's going to enable, as you predicted, Richard, the death of software by having better automated factory systems for managing, developing, and so Kiro's the latest one. Obviously, there's things like there's a Gastown, which has been out for a little while, that is in that idea
there's too many. You can't even say that Kiro's new. Kiro's been around for like
no, but they've just hit a point where they're saying this is a major release or something like that. They're saying it's been around, but 4 hours ago they're saying now 39,000 developers providing PRs and so on back to it.
It brings up a good point though. Like if there's constantly newer and newer ones of these and revisions of old ones, is the harness actually any better than a different one? And what would be the reasons either for or against that claim? And is it the case that it might be that certain organizations and companies or businesses will prefer a certain harness, or is it better suited to a slightly different perspective? Because like you said, that kind of harness thing, it's probably not something that you want to go try and build yourself, just due to the amount of complexity and like Doug's technical debt. But the idea of just using one in your particular situation and then going, wait, maybe I should use this one. Wait, maybe this one is better for me.
I think there comes a point where you just got to lock in and run with what you've got, like for a project, and go, okay, we'll do what's the word after the project? Review, and I can't remember the name of it.
Another
post-mortem. and decide whether we would continue on that for the next project. So you'd start small with like a small scale thing potentially, but why would you pick one over the other? And just looking at the way they pitch them and the advertising for whether it's Kiro or Gastown or Hermes are pushing into this space. They talk about token efficiency, memory utilization, remembering stuff, using command line tools and using things in more deterministic ways that don't spend tokens. And I think as tokens, are tokens going to be more expensive? And is it going to be the massive token wars, or is everything becoming commoditized? And we saw ChatGPT drop the Luna model down to like ridiculously cheap. Like we're still in this flux zone where we don't know is
very
where is the
dynamic
cost going to
market.
be, and so like does it really matter how important is token efficiency versus harness efficiency versus time? Hermes keep pushing, time to first prompt is 0.9 seconds instead of 5 seconds. It's like, okay, but that's the first prompt. Just get working and run on it.
Yeah, how does that help me? Phil just made a comment in the comments section, which I think's very relevant. Now I wanted to clarify what you said earlier. When I say the death of software, I say the death of monolithic software is what I meant. Like really big, I buy one bit of software from everyone. And Phil's made the comment, of course, harnesses and different agents and that are the new monolith. And I think that's very true. All we've got to do is work out how fast to deploy, what is the problem we're trying to solve, and what's the return on investment over time of using that tool. And it's a very dynamic market. So 1 minute we've got a tool that does this much. And as you say, Dave, next minute there's a tool that does this much. And you go, I want to swap that out for that. But as Matt was pointing out, how long will it take to do that and change it over? So we are living, that's why I think you guys are the most important people at the cornerstone of this whole evolution that we're going through. And that is you need context of the tools and how quick to deploy, and you need that experience.
So Matt, I'm going to ask you for some live tech support on this while we're on this topic. I think it's relevant. So I decided I was going to try and rebuild a monolithic piece of software for a friend the other day. And I worked with GPT Sol Pro Plus Mega on the web interface that you can't access via the agent. I think it's only via the web interface. And it went and built me a 70-page specifications document on what it would take to reproduce and recreate a better new modern version of my own version of this particular monolith. And then I said, okay, well, that's great. I don't need a 70-page Word document. I need to give this to agents. So it sort of built out a repo structure with agent MDs and did all the bits and pieces. And I was really big on some of the stuff we talked around back pressure, automated testing, really trying to make sure this was highly rigorously built so that way it wouldn't progress past gates without double checking and triple checking itself, because obviously I'm not reading a line of code that it's making. So I put all of this into this build infrastructure and then went to the ChatGPT Codex app. I went, you know what, this is, I want to make this good for my friend. I want to use, the best in class Codex software. So I threw it in there. And not only did I burn through my tokens ridiculously quickly and keep running out of quota. Fortunately, last week, ChatGPT just kept resetting it for us all the time. But that was helpful. But I was concerned that, because it's doing so much work, verifying and double checking and doing things, and I had this issue, obviously, on my own local hardware stack where I'm in Windows, but there's WSL and Windows commands for a lot of this development stuff and not as good in PowerShell. So I was trying to, and I'm like, how am I wasting tokens? Because it's just trying to hack my operating system and grind commands that it can't do. That's text file bash operations and stuff properly in PowerShell. It's got to go to, and so I'm like, is this, or should I have just spun up a fresh Hermes instance and just run Hermes? Like, what is the benefit in this instance of me going pure Codex app? And is that actually costing me more tokens and wasting my time? And then I'm stuck only developing. Technically, I know I can swap things, but trying to keep consistency. Only using Codex and Hermes, I could plug any model in when I run out of tokens and keep going, and it's going to have all that continuous memory and context and stuff. So I don't know, Matt, you're big into the ChatGPT and the Codex land stuff at the moment. Where would, am I wasting? Well, I'm not wasting. No, I'm just. What's your point of view on that little story I just told?
But I guess just before I go down these rabbit holes, what question do you want like actually answered here? Like, what's the takeaway?
Where I'm torn is, do I continue just pushing through on the Codex app, which I expected and was hoping like this is separate from everything else I'm doing. So I set up with clean accounts and a clean Superbase and a clean GitHub and everything, and I used the Codex plugins and connected it to Superbase and connected it to and it still wanted to then get CLIs and do everything else. I'm like, I gave you your own native plugins. What are you doing? And it just kept. And so I thought, I'll do it through the ChatGPT professional OpenAI special development harness, and it was not as smooth and professional as I expected it to be. And so that's where I'm like left going, maybe I should have just used Hermes.
Okay, my answer is going to be very annoying, and it's based on your setup.
Yep.
It's not based on your prompts. It's not based on the lack of plugins. It's not based on the model. It's your lack of attention to detail to the setup itself. Now, does that make sense?
Which part of the setup?
Yeah, it does.
The back pressure, the instructions, the guidance, all of those various aspects that stop the thing from hunting.
I spent hours and hours and hours trying to get all of that set up ahead of the hitting the go button, right? Making sure it had it had this whole phase 0 of the setup to get all the connections in place, to make sure it was wired up. And I thought I'd ticked all the boxes and done everything I was meant to. Obviously, I didn't, because then it spent another 12 hours trying to process working through additional connection issues with phase 0. And maybe because I automated too much of it, and I've got some conflicting back pressures. I did also get it to use the Grok CLI in order to have a verification agent that's a third party that's doing stuff. So I've also harnessed that out, which is great. But I think one of the big issues I have is the whole Windows development thing. And I think the agents, they prefer Linux backends, and even the Codex app, even though it's on Windows, built into Windows, installs into Windows, it's a whole MSI installer. Once the agents start developing, they don't want to be in Windows.
So again, I'm going to say it's a setup thing, because if you have a task that needs to be done, or a task that can be done, let's just picture a corporate example, like, a people example. And if you go to a new company, like this place, if you go and get a job at Bunnings, they're going to make you sign a whole bunch of safe work practices and get you to basically study what your duties and your standard operating procedures are for your role. Now, like, why does any of that bureaucracy crap exist? It's to stop people from trying to figure things out for themselves and to make sure that they follow the predetermined path. Now, your agents need predetermined paths. Yes, they're intelligent and they can go and figure out new ways to do things, but that's kind of not what you want. You want them to access your PowerShell through this method with this particular script, not by just YOLOing PowerShell script bash commands, and then the same thing, between your WSL environment and the Linux stuff. And if you did touch your Mac again, all of these patterns need to be defined ahead of time. That's why they're hunting. That's why it's going and just trying to search for the answer. And
so Matt, you're saying, to paraphrase, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a new way of thinking. And if you're using new tools, but you're thinking in old processes, you're going to get yourself bogged down.
Yes.
I get what you're saying. I assumed, and this is the problem, you make an assumption that being in the Codex harness, it would have enough innate knowledge about being the Codex harness that it would know things. That when I told it, hey, you have the Superbase connector, but for whatever reason, it hasn't stored that, written that, updated that in the right agents MD files and the right specification. So when it wants to go talk to Superbase or talk to GitHub, it has to reimagine that every time. And even though I yell at it and tell it, you have the access, remember you have the access, because I was not specific enough in my agent setup around the environment and the environmental restrictions that it had, that's where I've caused the gap. So as much as I went to the effort of making sure it had the .env file with the right API tokens, and I gave it the right setup, and I used the right connector plugins, and I did all the things, and I thought from a surface point of view, gave it all the things it needed to, I wasn't specific enough about telling it, make sure you use the left-handed hammer when you need to hit that nail.
Yes. Imagine you want the agent to smash a pane of glass. What's it going to do? Just charge at it with its head? Or it's going to look around and like see, okay, there's a screwdriver here. I can probably try and like jab it at it. Or are you going to say, all right, when you need to smash a pane of glass, there is the glass smashing hammer that is kept in this drawer, and you need to use it with your right hand and swing it at this speed. That's the kind of like procedural unlock of information.
Yeah.
It's called progressive disclosure. That's the concept of a skill file as well, by the way. So, imagine your skill file is essentially an SOP for a situation that you may incur. And then if this situation arises, here's the instructions and here's the reference files that you can selectively go and read and learn more about. That's what I'm talking about. And I spent so long on that stuff.
Yeah, I thought I spent a long time on it, but clearly there were gaps in my setting up of it, even though the
other thing too, like if I can just add on something controversial here, don't trust the agents. Don't trust that they know what they're doing. Don't trust that they understand their harness. Don't trust that their plan for you is actually correct or right or even feasible. Don't trust that any of their response to you is actually going to help you in the right direction. You need to force that.
I like that statement, because people, once they feel the technology is quite smart, they give it too much credit and they don't see the blind spots. The funniest story I have of that, no one died, was an old lady who bought a camper van in the US and put on cruise control thinking it knew to stop at red lights. In the old days.
Interesting.
Yeah, it didn't.
There's another quick red flag, Dave, and I'm sure people listening and watching have done this as well. Don't put plain text API tokens in your .env files. Just don't put any plain text API token in any of your files, regardless if it's in a dot file or not. You should be using some sort of secrets manager. There's plenty out there. Go research with your agents about them. I use BWS. It's not Beer, Wine, and Spirits. It's Bitwarden Secrets Manager. And yeah, that as well as Parse. Parse is another really good one that's in Linux environments. So you should basically never, ever have a plain text API key in any of your files, because this is exactly how these massive supply chain worms are getting spread. Poor people at companies being maintainers for a product, they get their GitHub personal access token basically ripped from some supply chain attack, and then it gets propagated because they now have access to their GitHub on all their various things, and they can push a new version and it gets spread to everyone else when they install it. So yeah, try not to ever use plain text tokens, please.
Which is actually, I think I misspoke. I didn't actually give .env things. That's why I was trying to use the proper plugins via Codex where OAuth, because I was trying to avoid all of that and use the Codex harness for doing all those things. But it was one of those ones where, I was like, my mate asked me to do this thing, and I was like, no, I think that's too big. I think, one guy building that, and then I was like, what the heck? We'll just run for it. And then I spent hours doing all the spec stuff and got to the point where I think this must be ready to go now. And then just kept hitting my head against the wall and burning all of my tokens so quickly. And then you're like, now I can't do anything while I wait for tokens to reset. And so the project pauses and, I got to reset. Good, I'll give it another run. And then, that still hasn't pushed a single table to Superbase yet, because it's still just fighting itself. And I'm like, is it me? Am I the problem? It's me. It's probably me. But
I don't think it's you. It's definitely not you. It's just assumptions. That's all it is.
But and the thing is, because it is working so hard and doing so much behind the scenes, and it is back pressuring itself, it started building some stuff. It has pushed a few web pages out. Like, it's probably doing some really good stuff in the background that I can't see. It's just using a lot of Sol tokens in order to do it. And so progress feels slow because I'm waiting for tokens to reset and do things. So there's that impatience piece as well, if you're not willing to pay for as many tokens as you need to push forward on these things. So maybe it's working fine. I don't know. I thought, for all those people out there that are trying to build things, it was worth just maybe talking about on the topic of monolithic software and what it takes to recreate it. There's some effort involved. It's not just.
Of course, it's not simple. Of course.
Yeah, and like, we can keep bringing this up every week if you want, because it's what I'm the most passionate about. But like, I don't trust any of my agents, individually at all. Like, I trust my validation systems. I trust my back pressure. I trust my loops. I trust everything that, I've spent the most time engineering. I think we spoke last week about Uncle Bob, guy behind Clean Code.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny that, he's pushing these concepts that now people are slowly adopting or extremely vehemently rejecting, which is the concept that like engineering now is less about what code's written and it's more about how the code is checked and validated. And you should not really bother spending time fussing about how it's generated. If anything, you should be generating more and then deleting and reviewing and rejecting that through your validation systems.
Yeah.
So
which is why I spend so much time with this spec, trying to actually put in all those back pressure and unit testing systems and make sure the agents knew they couldn't push anything before it had ticked all these boxes of preparation and readiness, and they'd pass it over to another agent for review and come back again. And so, yeah, trying to take all that feedback on board, which is why it feels so slow, because there's so much validation and looping and making sure it's right versus... And, this is probably far more complex than anything else I've built before. So it is a different level of work versus some of my other systems, even my SaaS, which was much simpler than this sort of monolithic data structure I'm trying to recreate, where I could iterate much more quickly and see results much faster on that and had a clearer vision for exactly what that was. So that's a whole different beast.
100%. It's even crazier once the thing's live and you need to continue to build it once it's live. All of the benchmarks and all of the like hype news that you see is always people just greenfield single prompting toys. The difference between a single prompt greenfield toy and actual real production hardened brownfield work is so different. The pain of scaling into that is huge, and that's the thing that I'm really, really passionate about, trying to spread awareness of and help teach.
Isn't that the philosophy of agile project management?
Maybe.
People before process and technology. So just get it built and get it out there, and then, as you say, double check it and look into it.
Yeah, or you could think of like in a reality where it's safe to constantly push to main, and main is currently deployed in production. What does it look like to constantly push to main? Exactly. What needs to be in place to be confident to put something like a ticket in one end of your situation, and then the other end it gets pushed to main, and you're confident that enough validation and checks have been put into place that thing's going to work.
Yeah, I saw. I mentioned the psychology of developers post from a few weeks ago from someone on LinkedIn called Annie Vella, who we're going to try and line up and get on the show soon. But she's talking about at the moment the whole idea of not even testing afterwards, but before you actually run the compile, mathematical verification of code and algorithms. And there's this whole sphere of work.
That's what linters are.
Yeah, verification without inspection. And so she's been talking a lot about this lately, this sort of mathematical proofing arena of stuff.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with it. Any possible way that you can check, that your code is correct to begin with, but then also checking the ramifications of mutations. So can you pump a whole bunch of pressure into one of your API endpoints and see what happens? Can you basically DDoS your own deployment and see what happens? Can you recover once it breaks? What's the cost of a mistake? What's the cost of a break?
You're trying to ensure against the law of unintended consequences, and that is one of the hardest things to do.
And expect them.
So that's why I was talking about whether it's a gardener fixing up your backyard, or you're building a piece of software to release a large piece of software, or an agent to work on your financial position. You don't know what it doesn't know, and you don't know how many. Look, actually, we're at a disadvantage with AI because it will come up with millions more permutations than we can think of that would be mistakes. And that's why the guardrails are so important.
And it can also say, yeah, I know what the problem is. It's this, do you want me to fix it? Yeah, all right, go fix it. And then it does it. And then that wasn't the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oops. Yeah.
Yes, always more to do, more to learn. And if you're listening to this and you're already on the train, well done. You are still early. And look, for many of these things, there's not necessarily right or wrong. It's all just, degrees of separation and working out what fits your situation, whether it's
have a go.
Yeah, but like Matt was saying, like get in and start. Don't think you got to do a formal course in order to experiment with these things. Get in there, ask your agent some questions, which I said to your friend, Richard, I was like, if you want to be using AI to help run project management, ask your AI, what are some ways I could use this to help this? But remember, your value is not in being able to know which AI tools are good for project management. Your value is in project management.
And also asking really good questions during that. Like, think about different realities that might be possible and say, okay, that might be true from the past. What's the current best way for project management? What if we were to reinvent project management? What would that look like? Okay, now delete all of those processes. What's the simplest and most efficient way of doing project management? And yeah, just spend the time asking all of these crazy questions, like you're trying to just make something appear out of reality that doesn't already exist, and see where it takes you.
Yeah, make sure the questions you ask relate to the problem you're trying to solve, and don't limit yourself to the problem you're trying to solve.
Challenge the orthodoxies, but also recognize that you don't need to reinvent every wheel either. Is that?
No, exactly.
Yeah.
The terminology I use for that is solved problem. Like I usually say, let's not inherit dogmatic institutional knowledge, but let's also make sure that this isn't already a solved problem.
Like a wheel. The wheel's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yes. Wheel has always worked, really.
Yeah, wheelie has. All right, and on that terrible line.
Bad jokes.
Thank you, boys. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you to our viewers all around the world for jumping in. Bunch of people on
Phil, Doug, Amber, and Joe.
Amber, Joe, Phil, Doug. We had a whole bunch of people contribute today. So thank you, everyone, for jumping on the live chat, interacting with us. We love your comments. We love comments after the fact as well. So when you're watching this on replay, make sure you drop a comment for us as well. We'll look to talk about those on future episodes if you want to ask us any questions on that. So make sure you like, subscribe, comment. We are AI Operators Pod. Follow us on the new LinkedIn. There's an AI Operators Podcast page on LinkedIn. Please follow that. Once that gets big enough, we can live stream to that, not just to my personal profile. Follow YouTube. Keep that growing. Get us followed everywhere. Everywhere you like social media, look for AI Operators Pod. And on that note, thank you all. We'll see you back here next week. Shooting the breeze, talking more AI business.